All right. So, Matt, take us back, dude. Take us back to January 2024.
January, I was pretty frustrated. I was running a cold email lead generation agency that I hated, and I was showing in the results I was getting. I was having trouble really getting it off the ground, attracting the kind of clients that I wanted to work with, trouble with the client relationships. That whole thing was pretty much misery. My personal life, I felt very stagnant in a lot of ways and felt trapped in the situation that I was in. Like, didn't really like the business I was doing, didn't feel like I had the money or the options to do something else. Was starting to get frustrated with where I've been living for the last few years and didn't feel like I had the ability to get out of that. It was just kind of a mess, man. Like, yeah, I was really frustrated. You asked me more about my goals than I thought about them in a long time as well. Really pushed me to get specific, measurable, and ambitious with the goals that I was laying out. If you'd asked me before we started working together, I would have told you I had goals and probably would have been able to mumble some of them off, like kind of, but there was nowhere near the level of clarity or conviction or anything like that I needed. That was the first thing that stood out to me. Like on the first call, you dove into goals for myself that excited me. It started getting the gears turning in my head and really thinking about what was actually possible for me in a way that maybe I hadn't even dared to think about before.
Why had I not been thinking about those goals before?
Definitely fear. You know, if you call the play, then you have to run the play, right? And if you run the play, there's the chance that you don't make it. If you never call the play, then that never happens. You could continue floating on in your world of unaccountability, and pretending everything's okay.
So what was it like then getting into a container where you had to stay connected to what's possible and not only call the play, but then run the play?
You know, it was kind of scary, right? Once I start saying it, and not just saying it, but then thinking about what are the things that you need to do in order to get there, incremental steps along the way. What do you need to make non-negotiable? Once you start defining all that stuff, you got to do it or let yourself down. If you never define those things, then you'll let yourself down in the long run, but you avoid that acute pain of defining what needs to be done and not doing it. It was freeing and exciting, but scary. Sometimes I didn't want to do it. There were a few times where I told you to off, you know what I mean? Push through. And a lot of the progress that I've made is gradually becoming more comfortable with discomfort, right? So you push through it and you realize it's not the end of the world. You build that habit and gradually that becomes who you are. I do it every day at the gym now. And I had that brewing in me for a while, but I avoided a lot of discomfort in my self-examination.
So what happened once you started connecting those dots outside of the gym?
I see things starting to happen, and more important than external effects, you know, business, money, whatever, is the feeling of being fundamentally okay, even when things are difficult or uncertain. One of the biggest differences between now and January, I just feel a lot more secure. I felt very much in panic mode in January. That was very much what drew me to look for coaching. It was this constant visceral, scared, scarce feeling. And now I definitely feel that a lot less. Over this last year, I've just become a ruthless, consistent machine. You know, I do not have any doubt in the world that I'm going to be at the gym when I say I'm going to be there, and then I'm going to do the things that I said I was going to do. If the sets are written down, the sets get done. And it's actually kind of remarkable how consistent that's become. In business, so I went from having a failing cold email lead gen agency that wasn't really making any money, probably losing money all told, to now I hit a 46K month in business. We landed a big partnership. I finally feel like I'm in a position to get back to New York.
Dude, that's
Brooklyn,
amazing.
baby.
Brooklyn, the best. What would you describe the process of working with me like?
You ask tough questions. You're not afraid to poke and prod, even where it's going to be uncomfortable, even if you know it's going to elicit some kind of reaction, which often did for me. You would challenge me on stuff. I'd say something. If it wasn't specific enough or didn't make sense, you'd tell me like, dude, what does that even mean? Damn it, Michael. Okay. To go back and dig deeper to figure out what it is I was actually trying to say. And that was very helpful. If you are not being pushed by somebody to be as clear as you can be, then you can allow yourself to like elide over all these details. You're not actually answering the question. You don't actually have clarity on what you're trying to do or why. And you end up in a place where, yeah, you are essentially lying to yourself. There's no like substance underneath the kind of the things that you like say you want, the goals that you say you have. Left to my own devices, it's uncomfortable to go digging for what that actually means, what the feeling actually is, what you actually want. Since it's uncomfortable and hard, there's a decent chance that you just don't do it. Having somebody to push you and call you out when you're not getting all the way there, not fully digging deep is very helpful.
What was the most challenging shift that you made this year?
Being ruthlessly consistent at the gym has become my default character. I would say I definitely show up much more consistently than I did when I get up in the morning, right? A year ago, I was having trouble getting up at a consistent time. I mean, for like 5, wouldn't really do it. Sometimes sleep until 7 and kind of have this period of time where, I'm kind of up, but I don't really feel like getting up, hiding under the covers. I'm putting on a podcast. I'm doing whatever I have to do to avoid the day. Now I just get out of bed at 4:30 and I get right to work, and then I go to the gym at 7:15. And it's like clockwork. I know I am going to be there. After a while, it just becomes the way that you operate. That's probably been the biggest shift, just a ruthless consistency. Somebody who would benefit from working with you, they probably have some like nagging voices, or just like a feeling in there. They know they can do more, but they know they're not doing it. And maybe they're not entirely sure why, or they're frustrated. What they need to know about working with you is that you're not going to baby them. You're going to tell them stuff that they aren't going to want to hear. You're going to push them to really get specific and dig deep for the answers to your questions. And they're not always going to like it, and they're not going to like everything that you say, but that's where the growth is. Somebody who's just yesing you to death or giving you lots of little pats on the head. You might feel good, but you're not going to grow from that. Things that you're going to grow from are being prodded in places where you're sore, or, being called out on your bullshit, right? Like, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. But, you can find all these ways to fool yourself, excuse it or whatever. If you have somebody else just like nakedly saying, no, you are failing yourself. You are letting yourself down. And here's how. That sucks. You're going to fight it probably, but that's what's actually helpful. I've been at war with myself. I've had a tendency to make myself smaller in a lot of ways because I am afraid of being bigger or appearing too strong. When we started talking earlier this year, I was having trouble actually with like junk food. I would, do heavy workouts and then afterwards binge on ice cream and chips, things like that. You could say that, heavy workout, refueling, it's fine, but I didn't like it. I would always feel really regretful afterwards. Now I'm like actually really very consistent with my diet. I rarely eat anything outside of what I know I should be eating. And that's something that's just happened over the last year. I realized the other day that I like really don't have problems with that anymore. I went a whole month without watching porn, but and it actually wasn't really a thing. I should probably do that again. Yeah.
Yeah. Make it forever.
Speaking of Matt from January, the biggest thing I would say is like, dude, it's actually possible. Matt in January might not have believed, I have this internal resistance to saying like, oh, look at these things I accomplished. They're so great. But like real talk, Matt in January probably wouldn't have thought that the stuff that actually happened this year would have been possible, especially the business and being in a position to like move back to New York. I still